Signature trademark of our Bay Area is the distinct and unique diversity that we share in different communities around the Bay. At the same time, we all share the same bay. The water that moves through it, the air that flows above us affects us all. Our roads, our rail, our buses, each of these would be really dysfunctional if they stopped at our jurisdictional borders. So we have a stake in regionalism here in the Bay Area. Well, I think that everybody benefits from the region being the vibrant place that it is, and even those of us who live in country settings have access to the city for our cultural opportunities, international airports, the jobs that many of us travel some distances to. And the closer we affiliate with the region in our lives, the more we understand the benefits it provides us. I come from Marin County, which is really the playground for the Bay Area. You know, there's 6 million visitors a year that come to the coastal parks that I represent, and almost 2/3 of those visitors come from the Bay Area. So it really is the place for rest and renewal for Bay Area residents. In addition, Marin County prides ourselves on our agricultural heritage and providing fresh dairy and produce for the Bay Area. So open spaces are essential as a balance to the more densely populated urban areas. We have an interdependence, and I think that's really the role that regionalism plays. You know, the Bay is an incredibly unique ecological aspect of this region that we live in. I think we all appreciate it, the distant views, the sailboats. It provides us a moment of relief from the day-to-day living, but it's so much more than that. You know, historically, it has been a place of commerce and travel from the earliest explorers. It provides us with our food supply. It also is now one of our newer and more efficient ways to move from one community to the other. So it plays a role not only in terms of our history, but in our recreation, but also in terms of our commerce and our mobility. That's pretty important. I think ABAG has had an essentially important role for our government and for our public. In addition to that, I think ABAG, over these 50 years, has made serious efforts to educate and inform the public beyond our self-interest. And I think that that is really what regional agencies need to do. They need to help us rise above our parochial thoughts to realize that we are, in fact, all interconnected, and that our interests, although we may not see them, are reflected in those in the communities around us. ABAG has done a good job of bringing that to the forefront. Well, MTC, you know, is the financing and planning agency for the Bay Area. It's the guys and girls with the money in their pocket is the way many people think of us, because we do have a significant role in planning and financing major investments in infrastructure throughout the Bay Area. And more recently, we've taken on the responsibilities of the 7 state-owned bridges. So we have a huge responsibility. Over these 50 years, I think what MTC can do is it can help us all recognize that by pulling together, we can achieve more than if we each pull for our own individual idea. It gets us to go beyond our self-interest and look for the common interest. And I'll show you some examples of that. I mean, I think we never would have had BART to SFO. We wouldn't have high-speed rail coming in. We wouldn't have a Trans-Bay terminal today. And even Doyle Drive being replaced right now wouldn't have happened if we hadn't pulled together as a region. And I think MTC has played a unique role in helping individual communities overcome their self-interests in that regard. You know, like siblings, sometimes there's rivalries within the family, but from time to time, we all step up and do an outstanding job. And I think that's the case. When MTC and ABAG came together about a half-dozen years ago and said, we need to identify what would be a blueprint for the future of this region. And the work that we've done in the Livability Project that recognizes the important link between transportation and land use, and how to educate the various communities about that so that our investments in transportation are supported by the land use decisions that local jurisdictions make. That's one of the things I'm proudest of at MTC in our working relationship with ABAG, is we've joined together to recognize that absolute link between land use and transportation, and collectively we've gone about educating, incentivizing, and ultimately enforcing the importance of that concept. California has been a leader on so many things, especially environmental issues, air quality, and now as the world comes to terms with climate change, SB 375 is a reflection of the leadership role that California wants to play once again. It requires each of the large regions to come up with what is called a sustainable community strategy, which is an integration of a wide variety of environmental, economic, and equity issues into an approach for future development that will improve our mobility, improve the opportunities in disadvantaged communities, protect against gentrification, but also look after the quality of water in the bay and the enjoyment of people as we live in this really vibrant community. It's going to be a challenge, there's no question about it, and I think the role that ABAG and MTC have is to educate and to encourage these actions on the part of the individual communities that comprise the Bay Area. I think that the Bay Area is certainly one of the big activities in California. Obviously, there's the large metropolitan areas in Southern California, but the Bay Area really is one of the creative and economic engines for California, and actually for the world itself. So the role of regionalism, or the direction that our region is going to go, requires us to recognize that we are now on a global stage, and that if we want to see our children have a better life than we have, to see opportunities for future industries to locate in California, to see the chance for disadvantaged communities to rise up from their difficulties, and to see these beautiful resources that we all associate ourselves with when we live here, to continue, we need to pull together as a region and take actions as a region that reflect that in our educational policies, in our transportation policies and land use decisions that we make, in acceptance of diverse cultures that will come here. We have that capability. We need to recognize how important it is to act as a whole. The program at MTC during my 12 years that I'm proudest of is the Transportation for Livable Communities program. I like to think of MTC in this regard like an old sorcerer who has taken the hay and spun it into gold. Well, in the case of MTC's transportation program, Transportation Livable Community Program, we have taken road dollars from the federal government and spun them into investments in livable, walkable communities. That's a pretty remarkable thing. Very few places in the country have figured out how to do it, but it's one of those programs that touches on the quality of life in addition to the investment in transportation.
Steve, do you remember some of the projects specifically that were a part of that initiative?
Oh, sure. I mean, the TLC program has been around for a decade. It has been in the urban core, in the Fruitvale BART station.
Oh, Fruitvale's one of them?
Yep.
Okay.
It's been in the Fruitvale BART station. It's been in Solano County and in Vallejo at their new transit center. TLC is many things. TLC is a new bike path that connects from the transit center into the neighborhoods in San Rafael. It's a new sense of entry into San Anselmo in our town. In other communities, it's provided the opportunity for higher density housing in close proximity to Caltrain. We really have used the program very flexibly around the Bay Area, but what's at sort of a central piece of every one of our investments has been that we want to make more walkable, more friendly communities that have a quality of life that allows for higher density living to actually be a healthy and enjoyable experience.
So what's the difference between a TOD and a TLC? I mean, this is not for...
Yeah. A TOD, transit-oriented development, capitalizes on our TLC investment. TLC is the name of the program. Initially, our TLC program could land in a suburban community like San Anselmo, but as of the last couple years, we really have committed that our dollars are really going to go to the TODs. We're really going to emphasize our investments. And so we began by trying to get every community to recognize these principles, and so we incentivized them investing in smart growth and smart land use practices by giving them some money to make improvements. And some of the folks, they started in sort of immature ways where they just made nicer signage and landscaping at the entry to their town. But today we're using those dollars really targeted to the transit-oriented development around our transit expansion sites. So we're really narrowing the focus to really emphasize the importance of land use around transit hubs.
So are you familiar with the Strobridge project over in Castro Valley, by the Castro Valley BART station?
Yes.
Is that a TOD or is that a
Yes.
Oh, it is? Okay, what about like the Daly City complex around the Daly City BART station with the theater and the multi-use?
I think that I'm not as familiar with that one as maybe others would be. I know that TOD really does need to have housing as a part of it. And what I've heard about Daly City is they made some land use choices that were intended to bring revenues through big box sales tax generation. So we kind of look at BART stations and say we want to see 2,500 people living at a minimum, living within close proximity to the transit stops. So that's, it's important to have jobs too, but housing is a critically important piece.
Okay. So on the occasion of MTC's 40th and ABAG's 50th anniversaries, what parting message would you like to contribute?
I want to keep my individuality. I want my towns to keep their individuality, but I know that we need to work together as a region or we won't get as far. The future in California depends on respecting diversity, but it also depends on pulling together. And I think that MTC and ABAG are going to have a very useful role as we face the future.